Scions of the Southland, September 24th, 2023. This is a baseball podcast. I'm obligated to remind you that
we are.
One, the Atlanta Barbs are the NL East champs, and two, the Chicago Cubs are somewhere in the wilderness of the NL wild card race, which is like 7 teams deep at this point.
Somewhere in the wilderness between Chicago and Atlanta, they'll be here next week. So my one request is, hey, maybe a nice sweepola for the boys. That'd be kind.
We would not appreciate that. Sorry.
No. You come here. You come at the King. You best not miss, except if it's in the NLDS, in which case you'll probably win anyway. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with this defeatist, but anyway.
I saw him win Friday. That was kind of nice.
Boo.
Wrigley is the best.
Yes.
I have at least 41,000 friends at a ballpark in Marietta that would disagree.
Marietta.
Does that even count as Marietta?
No,
it
it's
counts
Smyrna.
as like highway interchange.
It's Smyrna.
It's unincorporated Georgia.
No, it's Atlanta. It's technically Atlanta. That's how they.
County.
That's how they get you. That's how they get you. So we are recording from Mr. Grant's abode today in a central location. He interrupted our pre-recording dinner in order to put his freaking W flag outside, as if Wrigley was here itself.
My neighbor appreciates it. He says that's how he knows when the Cubs win.
That is how most people know when the Cubs win.
It's a very good tool of communication.
That's how it works when you fly a W flag, typically.
Oh, man.
Some more news about Tech winning before we get into the major news about Tech winning. A Georgia Tech alumnus fan? Question mark?
Something. They were wearing a Tech shirt.
Won the Stein hoisting competition at Wild Heaven of Jack's interest. You said you didn't know the guy?
I did not know that. I never got his name, but he was wearing a rambling, gambling hell of an engineer shirt, and then beat a Cornell guy. So I think we at least won something in the city of Atlanta yesterday.
What was the? Hold on. Did you?
I think every one of our teams won all the games
in the city
that they played.
key phrase in the city of Atlanta.
Wait.
Yeah, the United won yesterday. What are you talking about?
Oh, I forgot about that.
West End, were you? You were in Avondale.
It was at Avondale.
City of Atlanta.
Decatur,
That's city of Avondale Estates,
City
actually.
of Avondale Estates, my guy.
ITP. We were ITP and won something. Tech.
Just merge.
I was referring to Tech, not the
merge
soccer.
everything
Not the soccer.
ITP into one super city. I'm sure everyone will enjoy that.
When my high
That
school,
is basically what it is already, to be fair.
when my high school was playing in the state semifinals and finals for soccer, our chant was ITP. It was not Druid Hills or something Red Devil related. It was we were the ITP team playing the OTP teams.
What you should have done is done Manchester United chants. I'm sure that would have gotten the crowd riled up.
There were multiple Manchester United fans on the pitch playing for us, so actually that would have gone pretty well. Now that I think about it, I was too.
I could not tell you a single Manchester United chant.
I was in my Liverpool phase. I would have hated it actually. So
your Liverpool era.
there was a phase. There
That
absolutely
was a
was.
good Liverpool time. That was like 2018.
I hopped off the bandwagon right before it really got good.
Oof.
I got to see us lose a Europa Cup to Sevilla.
Womp womp. Well, I mean,
and Cubs fans who saw that 2015 NLCS series and hopped off the bandwagon lost out on the World Series. But I have no pity for them.
Nope.
None.
I just want to say for the record, when he said "I have no pity," his eyes turned dark, as black as the night sky. They rolled into the back of his skull as he spoke in a dark, eldritch voice. No pity.
Man, oof.
We're off the rails.
This took a turd.
We're off the rails.
This
We're
is
off
what
the rails.
happens when we do this in person.
Yeah.
Yes, this is true. You want to talk about something else that was off the rails this weekend?
Sure.
Georgia Tech football. They won 30-16 over
Watch
conference opponent Wake Forest. Mr. Purdy, walk us through the game.
Yeah, we came out pretty well. In terms of looking at the game on paper, we were favored to win for the large majority of this game. Won 30-16 in the end. Our APA per play was positive compared to Wake Forest, which was not. We were up 20. We were at half. What was it? We were up 7-3 at the end of the first, and up 20-3 after halftime. So resoundingly up ahead by multiple scores at halftime. Which we knew. I think going in, we knew we had our offense. We knew Wake Forest maybe didn't have a defense. We knew our defense was questionable at best. So I was thinking this was going to be an offensive shootout, and then when I saw it was 20-3, I was like, okay, something must be working here. I was at the United game doing pregame ceremony rituals, so I could not watch, but for what I could tell, things were going very much in the right direction when it was all said and done.
And one thing before we get into the game at hand, I do want to. I'm trying to pull up the game on paper for the last week's ODU versus Wake game. But
Give me a second.
One thing I do want to circle out there, and one thing that I think we didn't really emphasize quite as much in just introducing the opponent is Wake was not really all that secure with the ball against ODU.
No, and they weren't against us either.
They weren't against us either.
No, they were not.
Like, good on Tech for, I guess, and this kind of segues into the gameplay itself. For the record, I saw the first half via condensed game. I was watching and listening to the radio for the second half, but Delta does not have the CW live on its aircraft.
Come on, Delta.
Big sad.
You kidding me?
Big sad, but it's all good. It gave me something to watch when I got back on the ground, and also knew the outcome of the game. But no, I think that in terms of just a different game, it was honestly a little bit refreshing to see the defense maybe from what I saw at least, it wasn't a perfect game, but they created some havoc, handful of interceptions, fumble recovery. They got sacks. They got consistent pressure. 8 sacks is a good showing.
12% havoc rate. Yeah, they were doing stuff we had not seen this year. We went from 0 sacks in 2 weeks to actually having some form of a back.
Well, this is definitely
pressure.
This is definitely the toughest team that Wake saw all season, and I think it kind of showed. Not that they've been perfect, but Vandy and Elon and Old Dominion is a different test than Louisville and Ole Miss. Louisville's got some dudes, and Ole Miss definitely has some players too. I mean, half of them were on our team last year, so we would know. But I think in terms of a refreshing change, the defense, they came to play. I do want to call out just a couple player performances. I feel like sometimes we get hung up on narrative and we don't really shout out individual folks.
Are you saying that college football should be a marriage of numbers and words?
Yeah, perhaps. 4 sacks by Kyle Kennard. He is, I believe, the 4th Tech player to do that ever.
Wow.
We're saying it a bunch on the radio, which this is my shout out for listening to Tech games. If you're not there live on the radio, you get a lot of great Tech specific content.
Yeah.
Obviously, Joe Hamilton played the game, but Andy Demetra is one of the best broadcasters in the business and does a great job of knowing that stuff in order to give it to our lovely ears. So shout out and for keeping us in the loop there. But Kennard, 4 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. There were 10 tackles for loss on the day. Zeke Biggers, he blocked a kick. That was pretty cool.
And had a fumble recovery too. Yeah.
Yep. And then KJ Wallace, sack, forced fumble. Good. It was a high havoc day. I mean, I don't know. It was a nice change, but like I said, less dude-ish than Ole Miss versus Louisville. We'll see if it translates in a couple weeks. But hey, got to start somewhere, right?
I want to add, just because we're talking about the havoc rate a lot, and you mentioned it was 12%. That is 66th percentile. If you put that in context of all of the FBS versus FBS team performances in 2022, that's one of the stats that we provide on Game on Paper, and I think that adds to how good of a performance it was on that end, right? Like, you're generating this many problems for a team that is known for being a very pacey offense and known for being very high powered. I think that's something to monitor, and I think especially versus this kind of offense, and especially what we know about Dave Clawson.
Yeah,
like
and Wake only had 1 in the whole game, so I mean they were not getting behind and forcing a lot of an issue, at least in our passing game in that sense. And Haynes had some beautiful throws last night. I know me and Jake both remembered the one. From the recap from the condensed game of his just pure perfect floater in stride to Luke Benson.
Perfect.
Just he didn't have to do much. It was just right in the bread box. Easily probably the most beautiful throw that we've seen him throw all year.
It didn't go for a touchdown. It wasn't anything too flashy. It was just.
It was still
really
a good 25
well executed. He threaded a couple defenders.
25-yard ball. Yeah, like he made it look very nice.
I think it wound up going for 38 yards on the play.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Benson
He was pretty open on that play too.
Benson only had one catch on the day, and I think I'll use that as a little bit of a left turn into just kind of some commentary on the receiving core. Wow. Some commentary on the receiving core. It seemed like, Haynes going 16 for 27 and one interception. That's pretty good. I will say that there was some times where it seemed like he's singling in on Singleton. I think that's a good pairing. I mean, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different guys catch balls, multiple tight ends. We got the ball around into a lot of different folks' hands.
Yeah, we did.
Which is always good. But I don't know. There were some like the one that comes to mind where I just think about this is there was a play where he threw it to Singleton in the end zone. It was a little high. If Eric comes down with the ball, it's one of the I don't know.
I think I know which play you're talking about. Yeah, I think
if he comes down with that, one of the greatest catches in Tech history.
There was another pass that was close to the end zone that got picked that was just a little bit off. So there's still some dialing in for them to figure out. But no, regardless, he knows. We all know now. Okay, Singleton's the guy teams are gonna have to double cover him or something like that.
And I think that this is a game that was probably something that came at the right time. I think is a fair way to put it. Like Wake's not a perfect team, but they're well coached. They've been well coached for a really long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like I said, not a perfect team. Obviously, Mitch Griffiths is probably no Sam Hartman. I don't think that's
Sam
unfair.
Hartman's not walking through that door.
Yeah, I don't think that's unfair to say, but he's a fine player. I think he played all right, but Tech got to him a bunch.
Yeah.
Tech's offensive line not perfect from what I can see. There's times where King had to, maybe that's why he's looking in certain directions. Is hey, I know I can get it to my guys. Who's open kind of situation, But yeah, no, all that to say, it wasn't a perfectly executed game. Obviously, given that it was a school record in penalty yards, which is wildly different. I mean, compared to the first 3 games.
It's surprising because the penalty EPA is 0.
Really?
So maybe it canceled out, or they're not all recorded properly.
I don't know.
Or I need to go back and check the site, but.
I mean, we didn't lose, so it clearly only did so much.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of. I don't think the penalties are marked on in the play-by-play.
Well, they have it's -1 for Wake Forest, so I think they have to be marked in some.
They are not.
Negative 1.9 for Wake Forest.
Yeah, so there's only one marked. There are only 2 marked actually.
Oh, okay.
And they're both on Wake Forest. There's an offensive holding on a kickoff, and a false start mark. So it looks like they're just not marked in the play-by-play, which is very funny. So that is, again, I think I mentioned last week, I'm disappointed in how ESPN has been publishing this data. There are caveats with some of these things, but it's something to monitor, I guess.
I think I do want to call out, while we're talking about the data maybe being a little sus, but at the end of the day, I think just being able to read a site like this, don't
Are you doing this on air right now?
I'm doing it on air, but most important plays is called out by Game on Paper. The first one, that was Wake's touchdown to bring them within a score late in the 4th.
That was big.
And the second most important was the interception that Mitch Griffiths threw on the Tech 21. Huge plays. They got the huge plays when it mattered, and I think there's some luck to that, but also, I mean, they got the interception. 3 interceptions is a good night.
Yeah.
8 sacks is a good night. Like, if you could make the plays, and that's how you win by 2 scores. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to write off everything. Penalties, schmelties, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But this team gets a little bit cleaner. Cleans up the penalties and can execute a little bit better in the red zone.
Well,
you're cooking with gas at that point.
There's a chance this was just an outlier too, considering we had 5 penalties going into this game total. So it was very jarring to see us have that many in a game like this. Thankfully, it wasn't literally game costing or potentially bowl game costing in the end. So if you're gonna do it now, I guess, kind of thing, or maybe even next week against Bowling Green, because Bowling Green has not been exactly a force of nature, to put it lightly. So yeah, we'll be all right there. I want to say, and there's no way he doesn't know that and hammering that in them. Also, should we note the press conference from earlier this week too that he had, where he basically pulled an anti-Collins and was just like, "We don't take any phonies here." Like, if y'all haven't seen the press conference from, I think it was Thursday. Wednesday or Thursday.
I saw the comments.
It was the midweek.
It was the midweek. It was the midweek press conference. He was on one. They apparently during practice just had a really bad day apparently, and he did not let that go forgotten.
He dog cussed them.
He went all in on them. He was like, we made sure they knew about it in practice. We made sure they knew about it that night. We made sure they knew about it that morning, and they figured it. He basically made it sound like that they came to the other side of that and they were fine. What players, what position groups, who the heck knows? But
the blame doesn't matter. I think the idea of the concept of your team's not performing, you're telling it to them straight is the important actionable part.
He's not. Yeah, there was a lot of we are holding everything accountable here.
We're just holding everyone accountable.
Someone ramble while I find some stuff that Chad tweeted that I really liked about some stats.
I mean, he tweeted a bunch of quotes from that because he did. Said that was the Thursday one.
He was on one. I mean,
yeah. The one stat that I want to mention while you look for those quotes that I do find a little concerning. While we are in the midst of talking about that defensive performance, is that run stuff rate for the defense was still extremely low and 0th percentile by at least our metrics at 9%. So, and even if you look at the breakdown of havoc plays, there's eight tackles for loss, which are all of the sacks, and then there are two interceptions, right? So you're not a lot of your push in terms of your defense is coming in the passing game and generating pressure and generating mistakes, which is good, but you also need to be able to have that sense of rigidity up front for both phases of the ball. And I think that, like, you can sort of see the breakdown in Wake's production here too. Because of the sacks, they were minus 0.44 in EPA per play, the 10th percentile performance, EPA per dropback. But in EPA per rush, they were positive. And traditionally, rushing is less valuable than passing.
Yeah.
So you'd expect EPA per rush to be closer to 0 or negative for most of these teams, compared to EPA per dropback being positive. So when you see that reverse, you're saying, okay, well, we're getting a lot of push offensively. The other quarterback is making a lot of mistakes. But however, especially in a close game, this other team is still getting a lot of effectiveness.
Wake gained a whole touchdown on us in that. Like that was a 7-point difference. So absolutely made a difference.
Look at the rush attempts report too. Justice Allison, just about 5 EPA on the ground, right? Mitch Griffiths, even though he was having a rough day through the air, he was still positive on the ground.
Yeah,
like. They're still making plays on the ground in these moments. I know Damon Claiborne is listed here as negative, but like they were still able to put together consistent rushing yards. And I have traditionally said, and analytics Twitter, if you paid attention, memes about like running backs don't matter. I think that's not necessarily relevant here, but like they're able to generate effective rush play, and that's something that Tech has historically, at least over the last 4 or 5 years, has had a lot of trouble stopping.
Yeah.
And that's still a problem that I see that they need to fix.
Can I introduce a concept that we talked about off air?
Go.
I'm going to credit our most frequent visitor on this podcast for this one because it's his tweet. But Joey Weaver of Basketball Conference, who, if you don't check them out now, it's a good week to hop on there. Good time to talk about Tech, and I personally have been consuming all the Tech content I could find all day. But basically, he pointed out that Tech was more or less kind of struggling to move the ball relative to what we've seen, creating turnovers, rushing the passer, and heavily penalized. I think that kind of distills all the points we were talking about. I mean, I chuckled at the time, but having rewatched, and internalized it, I mean, it looked like a different Tech team, which honestly kind of gives me a little bit of hope that, hey, if they're putting more of these different aspects that we've seen together, I mean, I don't know, it gives me a little bit of hope going forward. I feel like, I don't want to say the big proof of concept word, because it's not, I don't
Not
think this is a
bad,
perfect game.
Oh, that is not the word that I would use for this one.
No,
not at all.
no.
I use that phrase now with some trepidation.
We've got some aspects that I like to draw on from multiple games. How's that?
That's absolutely fair.
Someone called a show that I watch like a collection of moments, and I think that's a good way to put this.
It's a good idea. Shall I read these quotes
yes,
from Mr.
read
Key?
the quotes and give us the context.
Yeah, so this was
we
Brent.
can circle
This
back.
was Brent Key's midweek press conference. So Wednesday or Thursday, I'm forgetting. September 21. So it was 3 days ago. So this would have been Thursday. And these are from Chad Bishop's Twitter that he tweeted. He tweeted the transcript of some notable quotes after the fact. And here is I'm going to read 4 of these because this kind of gets at the brunt of the attitude that he was going in with. So this is all Brent. I'm not happy. Oh wait, no. Here we go. You gotta love the process. You gotta love the process. You gotta love the preparation. Love the blood, sweat, and tears that go into it. You gotta be able to push through, overcome adversity, and you got to be able to sustain. I don't think we did a great job of that this week. I'm not happy. I'm not excited. I'm not gonna kiss the crack of their butts and tell them how good they are because now we're going into a dogfight to play a dang good football team, and our team better understand that. You can't have lulls. You can't have down days. I've been associated with Tech for a long time. There's midterms. There's different things going on. Midterms were this week. That's why you're at Tech. Because you can handle both. You can do those things, not make an excuse for one way or the other. When I said things are black and white, they're going to be black and white. Doesn't matter if it's to players, coaches, media. I'm going to tell you guys straight up the way it is. For me to come in here and have sunshine and rainbows, that's giving a false message to our team. You got to show preparation in your you got to show discipline in your preparation, and you got to be about the preparation. You have to open it up. If you love the game of football, you love everything about it. Otherwise, you're phony, you're fake, and I don't want those people around here.
Wow.
It's refreshing. So I'll give him that. And he's not saying anything that would get him embarrassed the next week if
No,
they
not at all.
if they
Not like
lay an
certain
egg.
coaches we've seen the first couple weeks of the season.
There's a very famous quote from one good old Stephen Godfrey that's no one is making you say these things. Expletive.
Right.
And we had one guy that did that did this a lot. Yes. And he is, as of I think tomorrow is the 1 year anniversary of him no longer being employed. So
at least by Georgia Tech, yeah.
By Georgia Tech, yes. I mean, he's still pretty active on Twitter, but that besides the point.
He got his money.
He's still getting his money.
Getting his $11 million one way or another.
In any case, I think that he didn't say anything that would come back to bite him about his opponent, and
no, I mean he said
he made his point pretty abruptly.
Yeah,
pretty eloquently.
It seems all internal to me at that point. Like it's didn't
seem
like he was calling out Wake there.
Yeah, I mean, like coaches like.
I would not call it a wakey leak, if you will.
Boo. What I want to say is like coaches. You see this a lot in soccer. Is like coaches will use the media in order, and Nick Saban does. Like Saban is a classic of the genre. Yeah. Like he will use the media to get specifically what he wants out of his team.
Mm-hmm. But what about the whole the folks in Athens were picked to go 7-5 last year or whatever they were saying after the.
I mean, look, psychosis is psychosis. That's their own thing. But like, I think Nick Saban does a really good job of this, where especially during training camp, he will pick out. He will make points in the media that he knows he wants specific people to hear, and right. I think this is an example of that.
Or do what he did 2 weeks ago and just answer his listener's question for him. Yeah. He had the radio. There's a funny video out there where Bama has some famous radio caller that he just knows is coming every week to complain.
Well, it's not Phyllis.
And it wasn't Phyllis, but there's just someone else that he already knew, and so he had his answer over prepared and just gave him exactly what he wanted, and he was like, So Nick Saban, media guy, after he's done coaching, it's going to happen. Like he has been highly trained. There's a reason he is at every national championship game that he's not coaching with the game day crew because he knows what he's doing.
But I think the point here is the point that we're coming around to is that Brent Key had a point in the things that he said.
Yeah,
he had a specific audience that wasn't the fans that he wanted to listen to it. And it looks like, at least based on the performance, that point got across. And I think there's still some pieces of a tirade that they still have to work.
Yeah, no,
we talked about the penalties. Yeah. We talked about some of the difficulties on the defensive side, despite the overall good performance. But there's a reason. It's in a very intentional tirade that has now been put to use.
Yeah. in a sport where just winning is usually going to be enough. Like I am very pleased with the fact it's like a win. Obviously, they were pleased that they won, but at the end of the day, like it's the effort that's mad. I mean, winning is a side effect of effort. So they had, as long as they get that done right, effort and execution, and they're clearly focused on that way more than we used to be. So
3 points is 3 points, Jack.
3 points is 3 points. Yes.
3 points is
Thank
3
God we
points.
beat
Is 3
Montreal.
points. They will be back in action at home this weekend, or I guess next weekend, on the 30th versus Bowling Green at 3:30. Is that a CW?
That is ACC Network. We are done with
I
CW.
have a couple keys to success. Jake's keys to success.
Sounds good. Okay, let's do it.
Number one, remember that Bowling Green is in Ohio.
I remembered. You're the
We
one
did
that keeps
not-
saying
we did
Kentucky.
not remember.
That's
We were-
Western Kentucky.
To
There's
be
a
clear,
different-
to be
there's a
clear,
different
the city is
group
still
of
called
5 school.
Bowling Green, Kentucky. There's a Bowling Green, Kentucky, and a Bowling Green, Ohio.
Yeah.
Continue.
And
Not my fault. ...
No, the Jake's keys to success. Finish more drives. Have less penalties. Do the same stuff on defense again, and you'll be great.
I like that idea.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
cool.
you just do it. Just do it.
Just do it. Easy game.
Just do it. Why you not just win, lol?
Why you no win?
Let's move on to talking about swim and dive. Their season kicked off this past week with a couple of, I guess, I don't want to call them low stress, but I'd call them like low stakes. Let's say
Low
they
stakes
had a
is correct.
gold.
I like that idea. Yeah.
Low,
Low stakes.
One involves swimming in Lake Lanier. That's always kind of
Well,
high stakes,
I mean,
man.
that could have been something.
Gold
yeah.
and white inter-squads. That was at Macaulay Aquatic Center to kick off the season. I believe it was the white team that won that. And then they had Swim Across America at the aforementioned dangerous Lake Lanier. Everyone returned home safely, so I don't think that was particularly over the top for them. But it's good practice as they head into Florida State next week. I think the way that we've been talking about this off air before we recorded is that we don't really know what this team looks like as a competitive unit, given that one of these meets was effectively a scrimmage, and the other was open water. So we really, I think, dive into them.
Not much to learn here.
Dive into them. Ha, ha,
Not much to learn here, and no one's swimming their best times at the beginning of the season either. So it's not like you can take these times as like a real token of anything. Too.
And the other thing is, we only have times and event winners for the event winners.
So you don't even know. Okay, so
we don't have the results. So
we know lane 4, lanes 5 through 10, and 1 through 3. No idea.
Yeah, and again, it's an inter squad. It's getting warmed up. So we'll get some data points. We'll do our traditional sit down and unbox things in just a bit.
At some point, USA Swimming will fix the way that they load data into their system, and we can have more analytics.
And
at some point.
And we've biffed the transition, but there's other things that you can unbox. And that could be Section 103. As always, if you order more than 70, free shipping on that box. But, I mean, guys, I got to talk Haynes King, right? He's the talk of the town, one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC.
You can get the shirt. You can
represent Haynes King. Number 10, soon, now. You can do it currently.
You can.
Brought to you by Section 103. Just of note, the player jerseys do support our fine athletes at Georgia Tech. And as always, you can get not only that, but the Brent Key coach's hoodie, pre-cutoff sleeves.
I gotta shout out my friend.
Post-cutoff sleeves.
I gotta shout out my friend Taylor for pulling off the perfect cosplay this weekend and it looked perfect. If you want to do the cosplay, you can do it. It is absolutely possible. So there you go.
As always, you've got some classic Tech designs, some new ones for this football season, and then some classics in there as well. My personal favorite, and it will always be my personal favorite, is the I'm a Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech. And a hell of an engineer. Go ahead and check them out at section103.com. Like we said, free shipping on orders over 70 every day. Keep an eye out for always releasing more great stuff, and you can find them on Twitter as well at section103.
Let's move on to talking about women's tennis, who were in action at I believe it was called the Collegiate Ranked something. I honestly, I don't have the full name in my shot sheet here.
It sounded very college ranked spotlight. Ooh.
It was in Cary,
Get him.
North Carolina, not
Cary.
Raleigh. I was corrected by Twitter earlier today. But Mr. Grant, walk us through some of the results.
Yes, absolutely. So first day was all doubles in terms of action. We saw a couple new pairings. That would be Alejandra Cruz, Mahak Jain, Carolee, and Kylie Bilchev. They all played on Thursday, I believe, 2 pairs apiece in those results. Carolee and Kylie Bilchev came within, that was a 6-2 loss. It was Mahak Jain and Alejandra Cruz that lost 7-6. In the tiebreak there, Liam Bilchev did pull off a win 6-3 against Duke, and then Mahak Jain and Alejandra Cruz came off that tough tiebreaker loss with a 6-4 loss in doubles as well. Like we kind of said last week, it's early. They're just doing this to get out there and play some tennis. I would not write too much one way or the other into results, especially given it's early. They're not necessarily games that are going to affect the spring slate, I think is a fair way to put it. Friday saw a lot more singles. In the A1 draw, Mahak Jain lost in 2 sets, but she was playing Mary Stoyana of Texas A&M, who is the number 2 player in the country, so I don't disparage her too much there. They also had a ton of players at this event, but it's at K-Rig, which is a huge facility. Carol Lee lost in 3 sets. She was upset by number 80, Lily Jones of Michigan. Bilchev got the win, 6-4, 6-4. Mahak Jain also got a 6-4, 6-4 win. That was an upset of Emma Jackson of Duke, so that was pretty great to see. Carol Lee took another loss, 6-1, 6-3 to a familiar South Carolina player. I think we may have seen her last week. I don't know why it registers as familiar. Bilchev also lost to an A&M player, 6-4, 6-0. In the A2 draw, Alejandra Cruz played twice, lost twice. Pretty tough there. There was one more day of competition.
I have those pulled up if you want me to hit it. Bilchev defeated number 27, Sydney Ratliff of Ohio State, 6-2, 7-5. Carolina had a walkover loss to Julia Morlet, of Arizona State. Ariana Arsenault, who I believe we've seen before from Auburn, defeated Mahak Jain 6-4, 6-2, And Elise Mills of South Carolina defeated number 87, Alejandra Cruz of Tech, 6-4, 6-2.
Oops, I forgot Saturday's results. I went right from Friday to you reading Sunday. Saturday, 2 walkovers. Bilchev took a walkover from number 5, Reese Brantmeyer from UNC. A little disappointed not to see that match, given that we see UNC a lot during the year. Carol Lee walked over against Emma Jackson. Emma Jackson is the one who lost the day before to, I forget exactly who I said. My apologies.
Short memory.
Mahak Jain
Be a
lost
goldfish.
to Alana Wolfberg of Tennessee. Carol Lee lost to Isabella Fenning of Miami. Bilchev lost to Carrie Miller of Michigan. And Mahak Jain lost to Florence Uriata of Oklahoma. So a tough day on Saturday. Maybe I should have just stuck with skipping Saturday.
I'll add the last doubles result from Sunday. Elza Tomase and Alana Wolfberg of Tennessee defeated Cruz and Jain 6-1. So tough end to our reading out of results here, but like you said, I think these are just kind of gearing up to play tennis, and it sounds like, at least from what the schedule reads, that the real meat of the schedule here is coming up, or the real mattering part of the schedule is coming up.
It's later on
next week, or I guess the week after next, at the ITA All-American Championships, but also in Cary. So, we'll take a look at how this team looks like then. I think we'll have a better picture of them in like games that, especially the ITA games that seem like they matter more. As they move towards the spring, and we noted that some of these newcomers are also, they're freshmen, they're foreign, they're settling into campus and Georgia Tech and all that stuff. So it'll just take some time to adjust, and we're just gonna have to let these things work themselves out, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's life. It's a good team.
That's life.
I mean, we heard it in the Brain Key quotes. It's midterm week, and they're traveling, and I'm not gonna overwrite any of this too much.
Yeah.
Like, they don't even release a team ranking till what, February?
Oh, I saw a team I saw a team poll. I saw a preseason poll.
They've started doing that now? Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much stock you can put into it, and I don't think it's getting updated every week, but it definitely exists. So.
Oh, well.
As we speak, Presley Harvin is punting versus the Raiders. So we're going to stop for a second.
Great punt. Look at that. Got it behind the tent.
Phenomenal punt.
Just put them back on their ass. Coverage. Look at that. All right. Good job, Presley.
Okay, anyways. Good for him. Go Jackets.
Speaking of spikes.
Speaking of jackets,
I didn't know how to transition. Let's talk a little bit about... Actually, honestly, it's going to be a lot of bit about Georgia Tech volleyball. They had 2 games this week. They beat Clemson 3-1 on Wednesday to open ACC play. That was in Clemson at Jervey Gym. And then they came home for their ACC opener versus NC State earlier today at 1 p.m., which was also a 3-1 win. Mr. Purdy, walk us through the Clemson game.
Clemson started... Clemson Tigers played really well in the first set and then did not in sets 2 through 4, basically. They came out super aggressive to start, which they kind of had to do if you're going to beat Tech just at all right now, and they did quite well with that. Tech only hit 143 in that first set to Clemson's 232, and they got it done. They won the set. They won the set 31-29 after there was just back and forth the whole way in the extra points, and just Tech just could not finish that one at all. And then they won the second 3 sets, 25-13, 25-15, and 25-16. So it was very much a tale of 2 different phases of this game, of a Tech team that was just not ready to go, and then a Tech team that was way too good for Clemson at all. And Clemson just kind of started coming back to earth with their mistakes in the second part of it. That game was really notable because Tamara Oatsney got benched for the San Diego game last Sunday. Did not play a single point at all. It was Lauren Sand and Anna Bosey swapping back and forth. And then she was back for that game, and she had the team high kills with 22, and hit 300 on the day. So she had 50 attacks. She had a ton of attacks, which is a trend that I'm noticing for this weekend is Oatsney getting more attacks than anybody else. So it was good to see that because she needed a get right game, and she got a get right game in a big way. That is not her career high. She had some really high kill games at Illinois State, so she's gonna have to go off on one like really, really well to break her career high. But that was her Tech high in terms of kills.
Okay, so that was the Clemson game. Let's talk about the NC State game. Both you and I were there.
Yep.
I found this, regardless of the result, I found this immensely frustrating. And I don't know if you agree entirely. I think you tend to have a little bit of a lighter touch with these.
A little bit.
Than I do.
A little bit.
Well, no, okay, you're in the middle of both of us, but I tend to be a lot more critical of teams that I know are good and can be good, and when they are not performing to that potential. I think it's frustrating to me to see some of the things that we saw in that Georgia game continue to be a problem.
Yeah.
I think there's still communication issues along the back line. I think we've seen over the last 2 years. It's whenever Bianca Bertolino is in one of those backline positions and on a server seat, she has a lot of trouble, taking her space or letting someone else take their space on a reception, and that happened quite a few times. And I think we've also still seen I guess regression of Paola Pimentel on server seat as well. I think she had a couple of moments here where they were bad.
Early on today, it was aggressively bad. Like, she missed 3 in the first set, and all were absolutely returnable balls, too. Like, they were not hard serves that just barely got in front of her toes or anything like that. Like, she had a chance.
To her credit, like you said, she got better.
She fixed it. It got a lot better. We both noticed that, like, her foot movement just was not there at all.
Yeah.
And then there was a couple I, like, really watched hard, and she was back in the classic ready stance that you have to be in to receive a serve. And she was moving a lot more better. So she obviously knew in the middle of it, like, this was not great, and she made the adjustments. But in the first set, it was looking pretty costly for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that we both noted is that, like you said, it's the footwork, and there were a lot of times that she wasn't moving to the place that she needed to be.
Yeah.
Like, physically, she was just diving for the ball.
Or just not agile. I mean, there's only so much you can move when that serve is coming at you in that moment in time, but it's the ability to be just that fraction a bit more agile and reach as you need.
I have wanted to put this idea out in front of you guys for a couple of weeks now because I knew we would get to a point in the volleyball season. And I think we're still having a little bit of, not analysis paralysis, but definitely a mental hangover from what we saw last weekend. I saw you nod your head, Akshay. I know that you think that. No. So what I want to put out there is more of a level setting for us, is that between the three of us, Jack, you generally have a fairly optimistic view, I think is.
I see what the ceiling is here, and that they hit it early too.
And Akshay usually sees what the floor is, and both of those things can tend to drag me in opposite directions, and it causes me some frustration. So I do want to level set and say, hey, and I kind of said it at the end of last week. The team is good.
They are.
They won both games this week, but the thing is, they're winning these games 3-1, and I don't think that that's as much of what we've seen maybe from last year's team or 2021 Georgia Tech, like dumpsters Clemson.
Yeah.
Right? For the most part.
But yeah,
I mean, it's a team that they've relatively handled.
We have not lost to them since 2015.
Yeah. That's a fun stat because, we think about it as like, oh man, I've never seen Tech football beat Clemson. If somebody's a really passionate fan of Clemson volleyball, they've never seen Clemson beat us.
We've wiped the floor with them for a long time.
All that to say, I think there's valid points, but at the end of the day, they are winning and they are getting it done. It just doesn't seem as confident as I think the Ohio State and the Penn State games made us. Or made one think, right? There's a reason they were a number 10 team.
They did
in the last week.
So I made a point after this game because me and Akshay had a lot of the same just frustrations and observations that we had seen from the Georgia game that had thankfully the Howard game was the chance to just play Howard and be fine. And then against San Diego's not what they were last year when they were the number 3 team in the country, literally, and insanely good. But they still were pesky at points. We got through it. We had some really good runs in there. But Kurt Hoyt, the radio guy for volleyball, and who's been watching this team as long as basically anybody on planet Earth at this point because he precedes Collier's reign, he noted that basically everyone except for Pimentel and D'Amico is in a new position this year. So everyone is adjusting somewhat. I noticed this in my recap I just posted about the NC State game. But Bergman last year got all Kurt, thank you for all this information because this was really enlightening to me. Bergman got a lot of the junk balls last year, just the stuff that you couldn't clean perfectly up and set for a perfect kill. But she was so good that she made those look normal because she could hit basically any ball with power and pace and find a spot for it. Bertolino is not that great. Bertolino is now in Bergman's spot in the back of taking care of a lot of the serve receive and taking care of a lot of, and granted, Otene's getting more attacks, but in terms of just the go-to person, it's Bertolino right now. Otene, her real position is where she's playing now, which was Bertolino's position last year. So they're both readjusting to new spots. And then Mendez is taking the right side spot. And then you have 2 new middle blockers. So the chemistry is completely changing and still being figured out this whole time. And thankfully, they're all super talented and really, really good. Deandra Pierce looked not great against Auburn in the preseason game. She has gotten better and better and better. This girl was basically 5th in line at Texas. So she was practicing against the best team in the country last year. But she hadn't seen the floor for a year and a half, basically, and so she's still figuring it out. And then we're running 2 freshmen a game between Mendez and Suarez too. So there is the learning curve. I think we did not anticipate was as high as it's going to be. When it's all said and done. So I'm not my optimism is that I know all these players are exceptionally good. The ceiling is super high for them, and they're not 13th ranked for no reason. I
don't think the ceiling's moved at all from the beginning of the year, despite what we've seen the last.
I don't think it's moved either because they haven't played as good as they have since the Penn State game.
If anything, I'm more confident in knowing what they are, having seen the body of work so far. Because I thought there were a lot of question marks coming into the year, and honestly, I think that's something that kind of showed out with the games at McCamish. Right? Hey, this is still not always necessarily a young team. Mogridge had the experience at UNC. Yeah. Deandra may not have played a ton at Texas, but still was a Texas volleyball player.
We're running freshman, 5th years. See, we're running the whole range of years here too. So,
but at the end of the day, Mendez, true freshman. These folks are still learning.
An
to play
overly experienced true freshman at that too.
And at the end of the day, there's a reason you play the season before the postseason, right? I don't know. I feel like I've been saying the phrase, it's why they play the games a lot this year in a lot of different scenarios. But, like, hey, like, you know, it's why they play the games.
We're going to get a lot out of these games just because there's and I know today there's just so many just tiny little mistakes just over. Now that I've seen enough games of us, that's like, okay, there's these just little bits that are just like everything's an inch off from being way more in sync and stuff like that. So,
and I think the 2018 team, it was pre-Bergman, but you could see a lot of the same, like, okay, this team is clearly very talented. You know, it had Brambia, it had Dowd, it had McKissick, you know, good players. But whatever it did, it took a year of learning for them to figure it out at the end. And obviously the 2019 team still missed the tournament as well, but that's what happens when you grow together. Maybe this is kind of it feels like a retooling.
Yeah, no,
it's still a really good retooling.
Yeah,
it's
no,
a better retooling.
Right, no,
retooling
is still, and retooling is what Collier has used. She's used that term retooling. She has not said rebuilding. It's not a rebuild. It is absolutely a retool year.
13 in the country. This is not
it's
a
insane that we can retool and still be 13th in the country and have beaten top 10 teams multiple times this year. So that's saying something for how good our floor is more than anything.
Yeah, my point there being is like, you know, maybe it's hey, we're figuring it out, we're learning through the year, and maybe they do have to go grab somebody.
I'm still pretty
You're a new recruit, but like that's just that's called the long arc of the program, if you will.
Yeah, nothing has dissuaded me from my prediction that we'll probably win I think we can win the first 2 rounds, and then whoever is really good that we face in the round of 16 probably just kills us. We're still playing at around that level. Louisville went to 4 sets today, by the way, against Boston College.
Really? I did not check the rest
This
of
has
the
been
scoreboard today.
like if you look at if you're scoreboard watching the first 2 match days of ACC play, like been some really weird results.
Yeah.
Like teams that we thought were going to be really good, like Notre Dame, Miami, like that we thought we were going to be like.
Well, hold on, Notre Dame's 2-0, so.
Right, but they went to 5 and they went to 4 in the other game. Like, but we expect teams like Notre Dame and teams like Miami, who are in like our bracket of the ACC or just under it, to be dumpstering some of the teams that they played.
Right. Yeah.
And
I think Tech's clearly a bit above those 2 teams, but
right, but you get the point that I'm trying to make.
And to recap, going around the horn this week, we had a couple non-con games. Obviously, Tech won in the midweek. Florida State and Virginia Tech going to 5.
Yeah,
would not have seen that coming.
Florida State is the one that I didn't mention.
Boston College went to 5 too. Maybe Boston College is a little better this year. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, let's not count those chickens before they're hatched.
No.
Wake Forest knocked off Miami 3-1, but that was in Wake Forest's building, so maybe there's something.
Who knows?
Something there, but yeah, no. And then Miami and Virginia Tech went to 4. Let's see, Georgia Tech and NC State went to 4. Louisville and Boston College went to 4. So, yeah, who knows? Maybe Boston College just had a really great weekend of volleyball. But, again, to call out next week, Tech has Virginia Tech on the road as well as Wake Forest on the road. So, just...
we don't play at home until mid-October.
Yeah, they're not back until the 13th versus FSU.
Which is a while.
I don't like how this schedule is worked out just because
it is super backloaded.
Look, I bought season tickets and I would like to use them.
Well, it's super backloaded at the end of the season after soccer season for the home game, so you might be in actually decent luck. Who knows?
Look, MLS Cup, inshallah, and then we'll get back to volleyball.
Sounds good.
I do want to just kind of run down the opponents real quick. Virginia Tech, how you say... kind of ain't play nobody yet this year.
No, they have not. No, there are still some ACC teams that have not. Like the NC State came into today's game with a 10-game winning streak. They have played nobody all year until they played us. So there are some definitely not fraudulent, but just
fraudulent.
Yeah.
But just like records that look a lot better than because of who they played. They have not started the ACC stretch yet.
I was going to say VT got Memphis and ECU, and that's the closest other than the Florida State. And Miami losses this weekend, but ECU and Memphis are the closest thing they've played to a power team. Furman's probably the 3rd best team on that schedule. It's not the world beaters or anything to that extent. Wake Forest just running through them as well. Their site is loading. I don't know if either of you have Husker Geek or anything.
I do have Husker Geek up, actually, while you're talking about this. The first thing that I saw that surprised me greatly was that Tamara Otene is the projected deep defensive player of the year. which I
today?
did not see coming.
Must be something wrong with that. That can't be right.
And then there's one player from Creighton that's currently the player of the year and the attacking player of the year.
The players of the year, I've been tracking that on Husker. It's been so wildly going back and forth. After the first couple weekends, we had like 5 people within the first team and second team. So there's a lot of
it's sample size bias, right?
Yeah.
Some of these things are normalized, but it is still susceptible to the pretty small sample size of games.
Yeah.
Just to sort of rattle off a couple of more analytics while we're sitting here. Tech is 4th in adjusted defense across, and the only teams ahead of them are Nebraska, considering Nebraska, Pittsburgh, who's top in the ACC right now, and Wisconsin, also Wisconsin.
Top in the ACC, left out of the top 10 today. The first top 10 came out from the committee, and Pitt was not in it.
Put Pitt in?
Put Pitt out.
I do want to highlight Wake real quick. They went to 5, but won at UCF in their building, so that was pretty good. They lost to Kennesaw in Kennesaw's building. They lost to Western Michigan in Kennesaw's building, but beat Mississippi State in Kennesaw, so probably the opposite of what you might expect there. Went to 5 against both App and Davidson, and were swept by Florida State after beating Miami. So interesting year for Wake. I don't say it's going to tell us a lot this weekend, but two interesting programs to get in their own buildings. Probably Wake more so than Virginia Tech.
Yeah. We also play at 4 o'clock on Friday, which is just weird timing. Yeah.
That's early.
Yeah, it is.
That's probably got to be a TV window.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Couple of final notes. Just looking at HuskerGeek.com again. For all the kvetching we've done about Paola Pimentel, she's listed as a projected first-team All-American.
These stats do not include today's game, so that very well could be different. But
yeah, again, small sample size bias.
The fact that we're first in dig percentage should still hold up, though.
60% dig percentage. That's first in the nation. Bianca Bertolino projected third-team All-American. They're 10-1 or 11-1 after today. They have a 4-1 quadrant 1 record. I don't think that's going to get affected by today's game.
No, not at all.
I take your point that they're a good team, and I should just trust in the fact that they're a good team. But Jake, you and I know that I will not do that.
No, I'm very painful.
I'll make another Kurt point is that he's noted that they develop extremely well. Notably, Braylon Morissette was not a name that was known by anyone really in the recruiting circles, and she turned into one of the best players out there, and now she's killing it in the pros in Turkey right now too.
Oh my gosh, Cody Comby too was kind of like that, wasn't she?
I don't. My memory doesn't go that far back.
Yeah.
So I mean, regardless, yeah, like there will be the players we have now. Like I'm glad we have such a usable youth core, because that speaks a lot for what 2024 could look like as a body of a whole. So I think anything we get this year, I would take with it's awesome we're getting this. Post Bergman's a challenge. I know, Jake, you have noted a lot about losing arguably your best player, definitely one of your best players ever.
2 of your best players in program history in back-to-back years.
It's not nothing. It's not nothing, but what it does is it builds you a much bigger floor going down the road, and Collier noted as much that Bergman and Brambia absolutely opened some doors that were not open before they got here. So,
it does...
program health, to go 10,000 foot, program health, much better than it's ever been.
It does behoove you to have the top-ranked 2025 recruit in your building to watch you get betten by your rival,
and then
commit to Penn State this week.
Yes, so Patrick Ewing's daughter is going to a state college, not to Tech, after spending an entire weekend on campus. Hey, at least she spent an entire week. She did her due diligence. She spent a whole weekend in Atlanta.
Look, you get official visits, all paid for by the receiving institution. At least that's the way it works for football. You make the best use of all of them.
You do. So
I respect it.
Pat doing?
I'm guessing they didn't go to Georgetown.
I could not tell you if Georgetown has a volleyball program.
Neither could I.
Could not. Let's move on from Big East country to ACC country. Let's talk about the ACC
Palo Alto
football tasting menu. I don't even want
to
talk about
Texas.
Don't even want to talk about how Stanford did this weekend.
Yeehaw.
No, that was
how you do it?
Yikes. ACC tasting menu. Let's start with you, Mr. Purdy. Talk to me about Louisville versus NC State Louisville a 3-point favorite. That is a Friday 7 p.m. kick on ESPN.
Louisville seems to be a thing. They're not. We had a lot of questions before our game against them, just like we don't know what this is going to be, and they're turning into a thing. 3-point favorites, I would certainly go with Louisville in this case. So.
Can't gamble in the state of Georgia. I just want to make sure you're aware of that. Clemson at Syracuse. Clemson is a 6.5-point favorite as we speak. That is a nooner on ABC, Mr. Grant.
Yeah, that's going to Syracuse's building, which is kind of working out interesting for a lot of folks. But I think Clemson absolved themselves fairly well against Florida State, who are a decided good team at this point. If you can go into Death Valley and win. Also, geez, poor Clemson fans having to watch their team lose in their own building, like in back-to-back years.
Oh no!
Who could ever imagine? But I'd still go Clemson.
And they rush the field too after. They're just.
They do that after everything.
They do that.
I was trying to make a joke with that.
That was my first ever my second. No, my first ever college football game was out there, so I got to do that.
Nice.
When I was watching Auburn lose after they won the title. Anyways.
Moving on to moving from a championship game bowl to a toilet bowl. UVA at Boston College. Boston College favored by 2 points. That's a Saturday, 2 p.m. on the CW.
Boston College does not want to be called a toilet bowl after taking Florida State to the wire in their own building a couple weekends ago, which is why
ACC toilet bowl.
That's why. UVA is absolutely ACC toilet bowl, which is why I think this BC line should be like 5 and not 2. So.
To be fair, I think at a certain level, some might say pot calling the kettle black, but I disagree. Moving to the opposite end of the spectrum, cool. Notre Dame at Duke.
Game day.
Yeah, that is the first time that College Game Day will be on the campus of Durham.
Wallace Wade Stadium. I've been to venues for every professional sporting league. Multiple in most cases, including like 28 baseball stadiums.
And Oakland Coliseum, which can't even really be called a facility, a sports facility.
I've been to dozens of college facilities across many sports and several minor leagues. Wallace Wade might be the most lifeless stadium I've ever been to. This is going to be a phenomenal juxtaposition of the energy and fun of game day with they're probably already camped out for a basketball game out there.
Something like that, yeah.
You do realize like one of the first episodes that we did in the first season that we covered the team podcast wise was called Wallace Wade Mausoleum, right?
Yes, I'm aware.
Don't go check that out. Not for our own health. Anyway, Notre Dame 2.5-point favorite, 7 p.m. ABC on Saturday. Give me a pick.
I'm picking Notre Dame here, but it's not a confident Notre Dame.
No.
They only had 10 people on the field, 2 consecutive plays out of a timeout to lose to Ohio State. Womp, womp.
And that's on them.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman's got to wear that one. Pitt versus Virginia Tech. Pitt, a 2.5-point away favorite. That's an 8 p.m. kick on ACC Network, Mr. Purdy.
Didn't Virginia Tech lose this week? Am I crazy? They lost to Marshall. They lost to Marshall on the road. Yeah, I'll take. I don't. I mean, there's no good football happening here. So Pitt, I guess. Sure.
Bit of an armpit game in it. Let's move on to Sicko Picks of the Week. Mr. Grant, what do you have?
Yeah, this one jumped off of the page at me. Utah State, I believe, is going to UConn and is favored by almost 7 points.
Why?
I'm not a gambling man, but
I hope they're getting paid to do that.
I mean, well, everyone loves a nice night in stores.
I hope they're playing in East Hartford instead. Play at the soccer stadium instead. Mr. Purdy.
I don't really have my sickos dialed in at all, so I'm just pointing it to the AL West race because I know that there is a guy who wrote at the same paper as I did, the technique that works for the Mariners right now, and they're 2 games back in the wild card in the AL West race, and I would like to see them do things.
Hey, John.
So would we both know John. I forgot about that. Would like to see. I was born in Seattle, so I just like to see the Mariners make the playoffs 2 years in a row. That would be nice. So
Julio Rodriguez in the playoffs would be fun.
Go M's. That Yordan Alvarez home run at the end of the ALDS last year that he hit it over the batter's eye in center field, which I didn't know was humanly possible. He hit a ball so goddamn hard.
Generally, you don't want to throw pitches middle.
You really don't.
Generally, you're told to not do that.
But think about that. That ball went so far that was going over the hill when the hill was there.
Again, generally you don't want to do these things. I'm just saying. As always, for my Sicko pick, you can check out GameOnPaper.com for the official Sickos committee, Sickos Game of the Week. That'll be up sometime this week. Mr. Grant, off to you for trivia.
It's very on brand this week. It has to do with Bowling Green. Again,
Ohio or
It's
Kentucky?
in Ohio. It's in Ohio.
In Ohio. Bowling Green in Ohio.
We got it right? Is that the trivia question?
No.
Oh.
We've said that like 4 times on the podcast.
It's a good bit. It will come up again.
I had the blank look in my eyes, I know. But anyways, so Georgia Tech has played Bowling Green 14 games across 6 sports, 9 coaches. There's one of those 6 sports that has a losing record all time to Bowling Green.
Oh, no.
What is it?
Baseball.
I was going to guess that, too.
That's a really good guess. They're the only other one that's even taken a loss to Bowling Green. All time, baseball is 4-7, 4-3. Sorry, 4 of 7.
So is softball 4-7?
No, it's much more annoying than that. But
It's not football.
But I will say the most recent time baseball has played Bowling Green, it was a 3-game sweep by the Danny Hall boys. So good job.
That was what? That was late in one of the seasons, right?
No, it was in early March 2014. So
Okay.
no.
Opposite of that.
No, just incorrect. But there's one team all time. They're actually winless against Bowling Green. It's because they're 0-1. That is men's basketball. They are 0-1 against Bowling Green. That was when Wack Hyder was in charge of the basketball team, so not any time recent. But the reason I felt so compelled to call this one out as being interesting is because the final score in a college basketball game at a neutral site was 102 to 87 in 1972.
Oh.
Isn't that nuts?
You know, speaking of things you generally don't want to do, that's one of them.
102 to 87.
Wow.
Generally, you don't want to give up 15 extra points. The Bowling Green.
You generally don't want to
in
throw
the
the ball.
30s.
You don't want to throw the ball middle in a basketball game and let them score 102 points.
Off your back foot,
Yes.
over your shoulder. No, I've got one other random one for you. Bowling Green is the rare winner of a mid-major national championship in one sport. Do you know what it is? This one I do know off the top.
How random are we talking?
Is
Is this a sanctioned NCAA sport?
Yes.
Okay. Please tell.
It's not revenue.
Is it bowling?
Nah.
Is it
Well,
bowl?
it's revenue at some schools.
I was hoping it was
So it's
bowling.
baseball.
I was hoping it was bowling.
Well, see, the interesting thing about Bowling Green baseball too is they got cut during COVID, and I'm pretty sure they were just like, no, we have all this money, bring us back.
No. This was a community thing. It was a community fundraising drive, basically, from alumni. I remember it.
Yes, it's not that. I will tell you. If I told you where this event was played, you would probably guess it immediately.
Sailing or something like that?
Nope.
Skiing? That's not NCAA.
No,
sanctioned.
he said it was revenue at some schools.
Some schools?
Which
It would be
means it's
revenue
like
at Boston College, probably.
Revenue at Boston hockey.
Rowing?
It was in hockey. They won the
Okay.
1984 men's ice hockey tournament in Lake Placid, New York.
Oh, God damn.
Okay. Yep. That would have been a giveaway.
And they
Yep.
defeated Minnesota Duluth, which also probably
Who was
would have
good?
been
Who
a
was
giveaway.
very good at hockey.
I would tell you, I'm saying this for the record, like Frozen 4, some of the most fun sport
Yes,
that I
it
have
is
watched.
good.
Yes,
It is
even the tournament too. I mean, they fill those barns up. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and then the Frozen 4 goes hard.
Yep.
They are. Those crowds are feral.
Postseason hockey of all kinds is exceptional.
Oh, yeah.
television.
All crowds are fair.
There's a discontinued sports section on their Bowling Green Falcons Wikipedia page for electric car racing. I don't think that's an NCAA sport.
Nope. Nope.
I
Sounds
also
like
don't-
a thing we should be winning too.
Oh, we do win that.
Okay, good.
No. We're a solar car racing.
Ah.
Yes.
We're gone. We've
Key
gone
difference.
beyond. We've gone beyond electric cars already. That makes more sense, actually.
Key difference. Well, gentlemen, I think that about wraps it up for us tonight. Mr. Grant, take us out.
Yes, as always, this has been Scions of the Southland. Thank you for listening. You can find us and all the other articles that From the Rumble Seat puts up at FromTheRumbleSeat.com. You can email us, FromTheRumbleSeat@gmail.com. We appreciate any feedback and questions, comments you might have there. You can find us on Twitter at FTRSblog. I am at JakeGrant98. Jack is at Jack Nicholas. Eventually, we're gonna get to the point where we just start plugging Blue Sky, I guess, instead.
I haven't done well enough in putting stuff on there. We need more. We need. If y'all follow us on Twitter and you're on Blue Sky, come follow us. Also, we have Blue Sky invites to give away, so feel free to like message me on Twitter or something, and I will give you one.
Yes, absolutely. But in the meantime, you can find us in both places. You can find Section 103 at Section 103 on Twitter, section103.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at From the Rumble Seat, and you can find this podcast wherever fine podcasts are sold. As always, tell your friends. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. Good night, good luck, and go Jackets.